Hi, my name is Sean Poppy and I work at the University of Georgia's Savannah River Ecology Lab. Our laboratory is filled with scientists that work together to study everything about the environment. Anything from air to water to soil to plants and animals. I'm going to show you some of the animals that our scientists study. Before we look at the first animal though, I do want to make it clear these animals are part of our education collection. Please do not go out and touch a wild animal you might see in your yard or around your house just because it'll look like I'm going to be handling some wild animals in a few minutes. These animals are used to people and they're going to act a lot nicer. Here's our first animal. It's a little tree frog. Notice since he's sticking to the side of the container, you can see how he has a light colored belly. That light colored belly helps him blend in with the sky when he's sitting up on a limb in the tree. If you look up into the tree, it's a lot harder to see him against the sky because of that light colored belly. It's called counter shading. Now I'm going to get him out so you can see his green coloration. And I'm going to hold his front leg so that he won't be able to go anywhere. He may try to kick and jump, but he won't be able to go too far. So you can see that he is nice and green. This is good camouflage for him to blend in with the leaves. See that light colored stripe down his side? It helps distinguish the green tree frog, that's what this is called, from other tree frogs that are also green in color. Look at those sticky toe pads, which help him to climb. Of course, he has long hind legs, which help him to jump. And there he is, he's trying to get away, but he knows he can't go anywhere because I'm holding on to his front leg. Now, as we look at him, you can see he's real shiny. He has secretions on his skin that help keep him moist, but there's also a poison in those secretions that make him taste bad to a lot of predators, so they won't want to eat him. If you ever have to touch one of these, if one gets in your house and you want to catch it and put it outside, just make sure you wash your hands really well when you're done. If you don't, you touch your face, it'll feel like someone sprayed you with pepper spray. Now I'm going to put him up and we're going to look at one of his predators that can eat him. So obviously that poison does not protect him against all animals. This is the bullfrog. And bullfrogs get quite large. They get much bigger than this one. Bullfrogs can get about 2 to 3 times larger than this, and people eat the legs of the bullfrog. You can see how long his legs are. Now, when we look at his feet, he has greatly webbed hind feet which help him to swim. His front feet have long toes. Almost looks like he can grab on things, which he can. He can grab on to things to help catch prey and eat them. When we look at his belly, he's also light colored underneath. He's going to spend a lot of time in the water and floating near the top. And if there are animals underneath him, it's a lot harder to see him against the sky with that light colored belly. Now when we look at his head, see he's got really big eyes. He has large tympanic membranes. That's that circular thing behind the eye. It's basically his eardrum sticking out there on the surface, so he hears with that. And since the ear is bigger than the eye, we know that this is a male, because the females, their ear and their eye are about the same size. But below that ear, you see the start of his mouth opening. It goes all the way around to the other side. If he opens his mouth, it is quite large and he can eat some large prey. We've seen bullfrogs eat those little tree frogs, of course other frogs. We've seen him eat mice, other small rodents. We've seen him eat small birds. We've actually seen the real big ones eat baby alligators. So this can be considered a top-level predator in the freshwater ecosystem. Now in order to be able to catch those types of animals, first he has to hide very well. And he does have good camouflage, which helps him to blend in with the vegetation and the water that he's in. But what helps him even more is the position of his eyes right up on top of his head. His eyes and his nostrils. You can see those little nostrils at the tip of his snout. So he can sit with just his head sticking up out of the water, the rest of his large body right below the surface, and he'll sit around the edge waiting for animals to come down to get a drink. If they're not paying attention and they don't see him, he's going to try to catch them if he thinks they'll fit into his mouth. He'll leap out of the water, he'll grab them in his mouth, and then he'll hold on to them with those front feet and actually pull them into his mouth to swallow. Now the neat thing about the bullfrog, doesn't have teeth like a lot of other amphibians, and so those large eyes which help him to see his food actually help him to swallow his food. When he closes his eyes, they actually push down inside his mouth. So if he has food in his mouth, the eyeballs closing will help to push it down his throat. You probably noticed that clear eyelid that comes up from the bottom. So he has what we call a nictitating membrane. That clear eyelid is sort of like built-in goggles. He can go underwater, close the clear eyelid, still be able to see, and now he can catch fish and other animals out of the water. We're going to move on to our next animal as soon as I put this one up. This is the southern toad. It's the most common toad we have around here. It wants me to put it down. I'm not going to. You can see that it might be a little scared. We can tell that because it has inflated its body sort of like a balloon. Real simple. If an animal sees you, obviously it doesn't want to be seen. It has good camouflage. Nice shades of brown to help it blend in with dirt and the leaf litter on the ground. But if an animal sees it, it gets too close, it's going to puff up if it can't get away fast enough, and hoping that it'll hope that the animal maybe has a small mouth and it won't be able to fit it into its mouth. But I'm going to put my finger and thumb on its sides, try to get it to let some of this air out, and you can see that it's actually quite skinny. So it'd be a lot easier to swallow right now, but if it puffs itself up full of air, makes it more difficult. Now, of course, toads, their best line of defense is camouflage, blending in. So when they're sitting on the ground, those brownish colors help them to blend in with the leaf litter and the soil. If they go down to the wetland to lay eggs, this is a female. When she goes to lay her eggs, she's going to be floating in the water. And she has that good counter shading underneath, that light colored belly that helps her blend in with the sky. So animals below won't be able to see her. Now, when we look at her back, we can see these large raised glands. There's one right here and one on the other side. Those glands secrete a poison. And if she was really scared, it would look like little droplets of white milk when she puts that poison out. That poison makes her taste bad. If you ever have a pet that goes outside and plays with the toad, if they get some of that poison in their mouths, you'll see lots of bubbles coming out of their mouths. It'll foam up. And hopefully your pet doesn't eat the toad, because if it does, when that poison gets down in your pet's stomach, it's going to make it feel sick and it's going to regurgitate it or throw it up. And hopefully learn not to ever try to eat a toad again. Let's go back to telling how this is a female. I already told you it's a female. She'll go to lay eggs. Real easy way to tell. If you see a toad in your yard and you have the courage enough to pick it up and look underneath it, the female toads, they're light colored on their belly and on their lower jaw. If this was a male, this skin on the lower jaw would be darker compared to the belly, because the males are the ones that vocalize. They make the noise. And so before a male goes to make his noise, that skin under his lower jaw stretches out like a big balloon and becomes what they call the vocal sac. And so he uses the air in his vocal sac to make his sound. And because that skin stretches, it's usually darker than the rest of the underside. Now I'm going to put her up and we'll move on to our next animal. Here's our spotted salamander. Spotted salamanders get their name because of those bright yellow spots. Those bright yellow spots are warning colors to let other animals know that it is poisonous. You can see how it looks real smooth and shiny, has a little bit of moisture to its skin. That smooth skin actually has lots of tiny little holes in it. It's what we call permeable, and it actually breathes some through its skin. It does have nostrils at the tip of its snout, but it does a lot of breathing through its skin. And you can imagine an animal like this. Notice how the head is sort of flattened, it's wedge-shaped. This animal spends a lot of time underground, uses its wedge-shaped head to burrow in the soil. And while they're underground, they're eating worms and bugs and other types of soft-bodied invertebrates. But also, while they're underground, if somebody pollutes the soil and that pollution goes down into the soil and comes in contact with this animal, it can also hurt this animal. So this is one of our environmental indicators. We'll study a lot of salamanders or other amphibian populations, and it's real simple. If they're clean and healthy, that's a direct reflection of the environment. If they're contaminated or polluted, then we know the environment's polluted. I'm going to put this little guy up. Looks like he's getting interested in the camera. And we're going to move on to our next group of animals, the reptiles. So before we move on to reptiles, we're going to do a little recap on the animals we just saw. We just looked at several amphibians. Amphibians are cold-blooded, they're ectotherms. They lay their eggs in the water. Their larval stage is in the water, but as adults they usually move on to land. And they have that sort of moist, sometimes slimy skin. Reptiles are going to be a little bit different. Reptiles are going to have dry, scaly skin. They don't lay their eggs in the water. Even if they live in the water, they'll come out onto land to lay their eggs on land. If a reptile has feet, it'll have claws on the end of its toes. But similar to the amphibians, reptiles are cold-blooded ectotherms. Now, our first reptile we're going to look at is a turtle. Here's a turtle that you might be familiar with. You may have seen one of these, maybe going through your yard. Maybe you saw it crossing the road. But this is a box turtle. Box turtles get their name because they have the ability, when they're scared, to pull all their body parts into their shell and close it up. They can pull their head, their little tail, and all four legs into the shell. Now I'm going to see if he'll pull his body parts in. He's used to people, so he's going to be very friendly, but I'm going to tap on him. You'll hear how tough the shell is. And I got him, kind of scared him so that he can close up in there. You can see he's not that scared. You can still see some claws sticking out, and also his hind legs are still sticking out. So he's not that scared, but you can see how his shell can close up. And it can do that because his plastron, which is the lower shell, it has this hinge here. So plastron's the lower shell, has a hinge so they can close up into their shell. The top of the shell is called the carapace. So it's nice and dome shaped. It provides a lot of space for them to pull their body up into. And when we look closely at the carapace, you can see it's got good camouflage. If this turtle was out in the wooded area with the leaves on the ground, he would blend right in. Now as we look at his head, you can see he has reddish eyes. If you see a box turtle and you can see its eyes, if they're reddish, then you're looking at a male. If they're brown, you're looking at a female. So that's an easy way to tell them apart. Now, let's say you find a box turtle in your yard and it's scared of you and it pulls its head into its shell and you can't see the eyes. There's one other way to tell. If you look underneath it, the males, we already know this is a male, they have a concave plastron. Looks like a big dent right here. And I used to remember that it's bowl-shaped, and this is a boy, so bowl and boy. If I turn it, you'll see it's got a nice little dent right there. If you were to pour water in that, it would hold water like a bowl. So, bowl and boy. Now, this turtle's going to be moving around. He's going to eat just about anything. He's an omnivore. He'll eat bugs. He'll eat worms. He'll eat dead animals. He is considered a scavenger. He'll eat mushrooms. He'll eat berries and fruit. So, we find these turtles in a variety of habitats. The highest concentration, though, is usually down in low areas close to water. Probably because there's more food for them to find. I'm going to put up the box turtle and we'll move on to another animal. The common snapping turtle. This guy is not a happy animal right now. When you look inside his mouth, you saw his tongue. That little opening in his tongue was his trachea. That's how he breathes. You can see he has pointed, sharp jaws. This is not an animal you want to mess with. We'll back up and look at his shell. You can see how his shell is more flat on top. That's an advantage to swimming in the water. He has webbed feet that help him to swim. He also has those long claws which help him to grip the bottom. He spends a lot of time crawling along the bottom where it might be soft and mushy. Now, the reason why he likes to stay at the bottom so much, you can get a better understanding by looking underneath him. His shell does not cover everything like that box turtle we showed you. His shell has what we call a reduced plastron. It's small, lots of skin sticking out. And he knows as long as he's sitting on the bottom, animals can't get underneath him and try to bite him where all this skin's sticking out. Now he can't stay at the bottom forever. He breathes with lungs. He has to be able to come up to the top and get a breath. And when he leaves the safety of the bottom to swim up, his belly is somewhat light colored, which helps him blend in with the sky. Again, that good counter shading. Now, if you see a turtle in the water, or you might see one crossing a road, if it has a long tail, then you're looking at a snapping turtle. They have the longest tails of any other turtle around here. Now, snapping turtles also have a long neck, and I'm hoping he'll stick that neck out. They'll sit in the water, blending in with all the muck at the bottom, and they'll wait for animals to get close to them, and when the animals get close enough, they'll stretch that long neck out, grab the animal, and snap it back, and that's how they catch their food. Now I'm going to put him up, because he is not too happy about me keeping him out like this. So this is our common snapping turtle. I bet you've seen this lizard maybe around your house, running up and down on the side of your house or on a tree. The green anole can also be brown, so it can change its color from green to brown depending on where it's at and how it needs to blend in. But if you look at it up close, you can see he's probably not too happy. I'm holding on to his front leg on the other side so he won't go anywhere. See how he has this long tail? This tail is helpful for the lizard for when it needs to escape predators. If you've ever seen a lizard and if it can't run away fast enough, it may sit there and move that little tail around because it wants to draw attention to it. It wants an animal to grab the tail, and then if you grab the tail's designed to fall off. The lizard can leave it behind. The tail will sit there and wiggle for a while to keep the predator's attention while the lizard makes his escape, and then he can grow a tail back. Now, one of the neat things about green anoles is you can easily tell the males from the females if you see them doing something like this. If you see a green anole sticking out a dewlap, that's what that's called. Some people say it's a throat fan, it's called a dewlap. Males have the dewlap, females do not. So if you see one bobbing its head and sticking out a dewlap, you are looking at a male. And they do this for a few reasons. One of them is if they're scared of an animal, like maybe a bird or something else is getting too close, they may quickly flash that out, and if the sunlight is shining through it, it's kind of a bright red orange. That might scare an animal away. The other thing is the males hold a territory. So if another male is getting too close to this one's space, he's going to bob his head and flash out that dewlap to let the other one know he's not wanted there. And of course, if a female comes along and he sees one, he may flash the dewlap out, but it's not to scare her, it's probably to attract her, to get her to come closer. But this is our green anole. We know they eat lots of insects, so they're great to have around. It's best to leave them alone if you see them around your house. Don't try to catch them or anything. These are great insect control. So this is called a glass lizard. This is the eastern glass lizard. You can see it's wiggling that tail because it doesn't like that I'm holding on to it. It wants me to grab that tail, hoping that then it can probably let it fall off and escape. The tail actually starts right here. So you can see it has a long tail. And of course there he is wiggling it again. Now I'm going to get a little closer so hopefully you can see his head. And with his head, get that little dust off, we transport him in a cloth bag, so that little dust was probably from the bag. But I'm hoping, there he goes, he blinked. So he has eyelids. If it has eyelids, it can't be a snake. Snakes do not have eyelids. So that's another reason why we know this is a lizard, not a snake. You can also see the ear opening behind the mouth. So it has eyelids, it has ear openings so it can hear, and it has a tail that can break off and regenerate. Those three things tell me that this is a lizard, not a snake. But if you see one of these in your yard, it is going to look like a snake. They do come out and spend some time going through the grass looking for little creatures to eat, whether it's crickets or other insects. Sometimes they'll eat small rodents, small snakes, other lizards. But if they see you and they get scared, they're going to find a burrow or something else to get underneath and get back where they're nice and hidden. Now, they spend a lot of time underground, and that's what that little pointed snout is good for. It's for helping them to burrow. They go underneath the leaf litter. Sometimes they can make their own burrow in soft sandy soil. But this is the eastern glass lizard. This is a corn snake. Corn snakes get their name, some say, because of the belly scales. If you look at it, especially down under the tail, looks speckled, kind of like Indian corn. Now, corn snakes are found around fields a lot, especially where they're growing corn. They're there to eat the mice, so they kind of help protect the crops by doing that. And they're found around areas where corn or other grains are stored, again, because those areas attract mice, and they're there to help eat those mice. So they help protect our food supply if you think about it. Rodents, mice, and rats, they can carry diseases that they can pass on to us and make us really sick. And snakes in general, a lot of them eat rodents, and they help prevent that from happening. So if you see a snake, even if you're afraid of it, it's best to leave it alone. Snakes around here do not eat people. So if you see one and you're afraid of it, that snake is most likely more afraid of you. Now when we look closely at this snake, you can see that he has round pupils. Also, you can see that his head and his neck are pretty much the same width. So those are indications that this is a harmless snake. However, if you see a snake, the best rule is to leave it alone. Don't mess with it. This snake looks very similar to some of our other snakes, especially one that is venomous. So it's best to just leave snakes alone. Now we're going to look at one of its relatives. Some people call the corn snake a red rat snake, but we're going to look at a rat snake next. In this area we have gray rat snakes and black rat snakes, solid black. If you see a snake climbing up a tree or the side of your house, there's a good chance it's going to be a rat snake. They're the best climbing snakes we have around here. Now if we look at him, notice his pattern on his back is very similar to that corn snake we just saw. So you can see why people call corn snakes red rat snakes, because they're reddish in color and they have similar patterns. But rat snakes get much longer than corn snakes. This one is an adult, but they can actually get longer than this. I've seen them easily 6 feet long. The bigger they are, the larger the prey they can eat. They're obviously going to be eating rats, but the large ones can also eat squirrels. Some of you may know these as a chicken snake. They'll get into a chicken house and eat the eggs. We're going to go in a little closer. You can see his round pupil. And there he is sticking out his tongue. Now, when snakes stick out their tongues, they're actually trying to capture particles that are in the air. Those particles will stick to their tongue, small particles that we can't even see. And then when they pull their tongues into their mouths, they stick it to an opening in the roof of their mouth where they smell the particles. They have a special organ in the roof of their mouth called the Jacobson organ that does the smelling. If they like what they smell, then they go after the prey. And rat snakes, as I said earlier, they're real good climbers. The reason why that might be going up a tree or going up the side of your house could be something as simple as you have an animal up there, whether it's in your attic or in a nest up in the tree. That animal, when it goes to the bathroom, the waste drops down to the ground. The snake detects it on the ground and figures, well, if I go up, I might be able to get myself a meal. So they're going up to find a meal. Now, one thing snakes will do, you can see this guy's wrapping around my wrist, but if you encounter a snake in your yard and it gets scared, one of the things they'll do is they'll take this long tail tip that they have and they'll flick it around. And when it hits leaves and twigs on the ground, it'll sound like a rattle. And so some people see these big rat snakes in their yard and they think they have a rattlesnake. But a lot of snakes will do this. They're just making that noise, probably trying to get your attention so you don't step on them. Again, with snakes, it's best to leave them alone. Even if it is a true rattlesnake, it actually has a rattle at the tip of its tail, leave it alone. It should leave you alone. Again, they cannot eat us around here. Now I'm going to put this guy up and we're going to move on to our next animal. So this is the American alligator. This is a baby, a little over 1.5 years old. That sound that it just made is the call for mom. So it doesn't like that I grabbed it and I'm holding it. And if I was outside near the water where its mom was, I would not be holding it right now. Its mom is about 9 feet long. When the baby makes that noise, mom's instinct is to protect her young. So definitely would not be holding this thing. Wouldn't want a 9-foot alligator coming after me. If you go outside near the water and you hear a strange noise like that, definitely want to get out of there. Don't stick around too much. You may not see mom, you may not see the babies, but they're there. Definitely want to play it safe and get out. Now we're going to look a little closer at this one's head. You can see those little teeth sticking out. When they hatch, they already have teeth. Oh, it's going to make that noise. There it is. I want to show you its eye. So you can see when that eye blinks, there's a clear eyelid, that nictitating membrane, just like what the bullfrog had. And that allows alligators, just like the bullfrogs, to be able to go underwater and be able to see little creatures and prey that they can catch and eat without their eyeballs hurting like ours would if we tried to look at things underwater. So built-in goggles. I'm going to put this one up, and we're going to see what the American alligator looks like when it's about 3.5 years old. You can see he's a lot bigger. If we look at him, you can see he still has some of those stripes, but not as many as that little baby. This one's going to be, as it matures, it's going to spend a lot more time maybe down at the bottom, so it needs to blend in with the darkness there. Now you can see he has this powerful tail that helps him to move through the water. Lots of muscle right in here. If you ever hear of people eating alligators, they'll hunt the real big alligators and they'll eat the meat that's in the tail. So powerful muscle there to help them move. And since they're long and narrow, that makes them go fast through the water. Now, we're going to look at the belly. It's light colored. And that way when the alligator's swimming around, if there's a larger alligator or possibly a turtle in the water below looking up, it's a lot harder to see it against the sky. That's that good counter shading. We're going to focus on the back. Coming a little close. You can see all these little bumps on its back. These little bumps are called osteoderms. Osteo is bone, derm is skin. So it literally means bone and skin. You can see when I push on it, it doesn't really push in. I can tap on it. You can hear it's tough. So those little bony plates are good protection for this alligator from other animals that might try to attack it. But also it helps them to store the heat when they're sitting in the sun. They like to bask, especially after eating. They like to sit in the sun and get all warmed up. And those bony plates help them store that heat. So even when the sun goes down, the bone will still stay warm for a while. So they have to be a certain temperature in order to digest their food. So that's why sitting in the sun is real important for them. Now as we look at this one's head, we see bigger teeth. You can see he's also blinking that nictitating membrane. He's moving it across. Notice on the head, the highest point are the eyes, and then of course the nostrils at the snout. So these animals can sit in the water with just their eyes and nostrils sticking out, waiting for other animals and maybe come down to get a drink, and then they can latch onto them with their powerful jaws. Now I'm going to get this one to open his mouth. He's usually pretty good at letting it open. He might fight this one. There he goes. You can tell we've handled him for quite a while. But when he opens his mouth, you can see the teeth in there. You can see his tongue on the bottom. You cannot see down his throat. And that's because he has a special little flap at the back of his mouth. It's actually called a palatal valve, but we'll just say it's a watertight flap. And that flap stays shut so that way he doesn't drown when he goes for a swim, when he's in the water. When he grabs his food, something that he just caught, he'll chomp it up. He'll keep that valve closed until he's ready to swallow. And then he'll usually stick his head up out of the water, open that valve, and let the food go down. So this is our American alligator. Main thing with alligators is to leave them alone. Alligators, they don't like to mess with us. They're usually afraid of us. We need to make sure that they stay afraid of us. So we don't want people to play with them. We especially don't want people to feed them, because that will sort of train them that people will bring them food. Also, if you know alligators are around, you don't want to let your pets go down to the water. An alligator can't tell the difference between your pet or a food item. So let's just remember that if alligators are around, we need to give them some respect and just leave them alone. They're important predators to have out in the ecosystem. Now I'm going to put this guy up, and we'll move on to another animal. So our next animal is a vulture. So this is a turkey vulture, and if you look at her, you'll see she has a reddish head, just like our wild turkey around here. Now if you notice, her head's kind of bald, and I'm sure you know vultures are scavengers. They feed on dead animals. And when you're sticking your head into the body cavity of a dead animal, you don't want feathers on your head that might possibly get some stuff on it. So they have that bald head. Now if you look closer at her head, you can see those openings right behind her beak. So she has nostrils, they're up in there. That bone across the front helps prevent material from getting stuck in the nostrils. But she has a great sense of smell. If she's up soaring in the sky, she could possibly smell a dead animal from a mile or more away. So great sense of smell. Once they figure out where the animal is, they'll go down, they'll eat it up. And I know that sounds disgusting, but when animals die and they're decomposing, that could release bacteria, disease into the environment. And for an animal like this, they provide a great service. They have very strong acids in their stomach. When they eat up those dead animals, it puts an end to the spread of any bacteria or disease. So, now one of the things vultures do when they get scared is that they regurgitate. So she's obviously not scared right now, but if she was scared, she would essentially try to throw up something she recently ate. Another disgusting thing they do is when it's a very hot day, one of the ways they help themselves cool off, especially their legs and feet, is by going to the bathroom on it. And so they'll go to the bathroom on their legs and feet, and when the liquid evaporates, it helps to cool their legs and feet. And we have to watch this on her because if she goes to the bathroom a lot where these little anklets are attached to her legs, there could be some buildup of her waste on there that could cause some problems. We make sure they stay fairly clean. Now she's got one wing stretched out, and if you notice, the feathers are light colored along the back of the wing. If you see vultures circling up in the sky, you can easily tell black vultures from the turkey vulture. Turkey vultures have those light feathers across the back of the wing. Black vultures only have the light feathers at the tips of the wings. So we have two different vultures around here. The turkey vultures are the ones that are going to smell a dead animal first. The black vultures a lot of times will follow turkey vultures because they know that they're a lot better at locating the dead animals. Now, she actually has her wings spread right now. She has about a 6-foot wingspan. So when she flaps her wings, if I don't put my arm out real quick, obviously she kind of smacks me in the head a little bit. But again, important animal to have around. Think of this as the cleanup crew for the environment. Now, I'm going to put her up and we're going to move on to our next animal. Well, our next animal is the opossum. Now, opossums provide a great service for us, just like that vulture, because they're important scavengers. They have a great sense of smell that helps them to find their food, and they have 50 teeth which allow them to eat a lot of different types of food items. Now if you look at this opossum, she wants to get back into her crate so she can go back to sleep. Look at her feet, how they almost look like little hands. They have a thumb on each one of their 4 feet which helps them to climb. If they need extra help, they have a prehensile tail they can use to wrap around things to hang on. But they don't like to hang on to anything for an extended period of time. They want to get back on their feet. Now, again, she wants to get back into her crate. If she were to open her mouth, you would see a lot of teeth, and those teeth are not only for eating food, they're for protection. So if she gets really aggravated with me, she may turn around and bite me, and trust me, a bite from an opossum really hurts. So they're the mammal with the most teeth around here, 50 teeth. They have an opposable thumb on each foot. They have a great sense of smell. Their eyes look small, but they can still see fairly well at night. It's their sense of smell that really guides them to the food. Prehensile tail helps them to hang on to things if needed. And of course, it's the only marsupial in North America. She has a pouch. If I try to show you her pouch, she may possibly bite me. So we'll just leave it as she has a pouch. Now, one of the neat things opossums do when they get really scared is they play dead. And it's not anything they can really control. If their body gets a lot of stress, real stressful situation, they'll just sort of shut down, being almost like a comatose-like state. and it could last several minutes. So it's just something that they do to ward off some potential predators. Now, they also can smell really bad too. They'll secrete a stinky smell out of some glands, make it smell like they're really dead. But I'm going to put her up so she can go back to sleep. Now we're going to look at a coyote. So coyotes are another scavenger we have around here. They have a great sense of smell that helps them to find dead animals in the woods. They also use that sense of smell to maybe find a rodent underground. That in combination with their great hearing, they can hear the rodent, figure out where it is, pounce, dig, and in a matter of seconds they can have it up and they can have a meal. Now, as I just mentioned, they don't just eat dead animals, they also eat live animals. And they'll eat anything from frogs, they'll eat birds, they'll eat small pets, small farm animals, and so a lot of people don't like coyotes because of that. Now, for the most part, coyotes are afraid of us. They're also afraid of change. This is all new to him, and that's why he's acting this way with his ears down to the side. And he's looking around. He's sitting on his tail, bushy tail with the black tip. That'll let you know it's a coyote. And these are all signs he's just not happy right now. So they don't like change. That's a trick to keeping them away from your house. If one frequents your yard, you can move things around that might keep them from coming back in there. They sort of detect that something is different. As far as farm animals, a lot of farmers know to put guard animals in with their smaller ones, like a donkey in with goats. The donkey will keep the coyotes away. But one thing to know is that coyotes are here to stay. They're not going anywhere. They're extremely adaptable. If you see coyotes out in the wilderness, a lot of times they're out during the day. They're diurnal. But if they live close to humans, since they're afraid of humans, they change their behavior and become more nocturnal. They come out at night while the humans are in bed sleeping. So extremely adaptable. Just remember that. If you ever see a coyote, the main thing you need to do is make sure, if it's real close to your house, make sure it has a negative interaction. Bang on something, yell at it, maybe throw something in its direction, not to hit it, but just to scare it off. If you don't have it experience a negative reaction, you just ignore it and let it walk on through while you're in close proximity to it. That may teach the coyote that humans are not a threat. So it's important to remember our interactions with wildlife helps to teach them to stay away from us. Now, I'm going to put the coyote up. His name is Scooter. And before I do, I'm going to see, well, he's showing you his teeth pretty good. But if an animal ever shows you its teeth, that's a pretty good indication that it wants you to back off. However, you generally don't have to see that in coyotes, because if they hear you or smell you and they know you're in the area, they're going to be long gone before you get too close to them. However, if they're trapped, that's when you'll see a lot of these behaviors. Now I'm going to put him up and we'll continue on. So those are all the animals I brought to show you today. I hope you enjoyed seeing them, learning more about them. We are very lucky to live in an area that has a lot of biodiversity, many different types of living things. And it's possible you could see some of these same animals in your own backyard, but please remember, do not go out and touch them thinking that they're going to be as nice as the ones that I just showed you. The ones I just showed you are more used to being around people. The ones in the wild should not be. Now, if you want to learn more about these animals, or really anything that you have an interest in, the easiest thing to do is to go find a book on it. You can watch programs on TV, you can look on the internet, but you can take a book just about anywhere. Go get a good book on something you're interested in, go find a nice peaceful place like the one back here, and enjoy the book. Books don't require electricity, so you can take them anywhere. Well, I hope you enjoyed the presentation, and I hope you have a good day.